Oh, geez. So when I was a teenager, I was maybe 13, 14 years old. I got the chance to do a teen tour, which is basically like it's camp, but they send you away to do this awesome adventure type thing. And I live on the east coast of the U.S. So we started our trip in Washington State, off on the west coast, and then went through over the border into British Columbia, and we did like hiking, mountain biking, water rafting, a bunch of wonderful stuff. But one moment that really stood out to me in this whole thing was on the border, the U.S. Canada border. Now, this was the late 90s. There's this hostel, and everything is set up in teepees, and everything is essentially communal except for sleeping. Like, you go to your little teepee to sleep, but everything else is just out in the open. And I was sitting in my teepee, and I heard music. So I was like, all right, let's go see what this is about. So there was a guitar in the main center, and I was a very big guitarist back in the day. And I shouldn't say big. I loved playing guitar, and I was okay at it. So I grabbed the guitar, and I sat out, and we played music, and we jammed, and I got to learn how to play the didgeridoo, which is like, now I want to go out and buy one, and I've wanted to for so long, but I can't justify spending money on a didgeridoo. Um, but after, I don't know, an hour and a half of just playing music, we kind of got tired of that, and everyone sat around the campfire and just told their story. And everybody had a different story. So none of us had come together. A few people, there was a few couples there, but it was maybe like 12 or 13 of us. And everyone just told their story in a chill, relaxed way. And everyone there was this unspoken rule that, you've got the talking stick. So, there was one guy who, I think he was caught for possession of marijuana for like the third time, and he was fleeing the law. But then there was someone else who was fleeing a bad situation. And there was someone else who just wanted to go hiking in Canada. And there was someone else fleeing Canada to America. So you had all these weird stories of all these different people with different backgrounds. And it was just, as a kid who grew up in this bubble of like upper middle class suburbia, it was just mind blowing for me to hear that the world isn't always easy for some people. And not just that like everyone had a different path. Like, there were people there that were completely happy, but had difficult, weird, unique paths. So because of all of that, I was like, how do I kind of tease that out in more of, a situation where I can learn about new people, and I can, hopefully share their stories so that it's not just me lucky enough sitting around a campfire, but then other people can learn about this as well. So that was kind of what born this. So that's my little intro-ish. And I want to give a few more minutes for people to show up, but at this point, I've like spewed a lot. So I'm gonna start with a really lowball, easy question. Have you ever sat around a campfire telling stories?
Uh, I think I have. It's been a while, to be quite honest. I did go to one camp, and I don't remember anything about the camp. In fact, I'm going to tell a somewhat embarrassing story. I wasn't feeling myself, and I kind of went on a walk on my own. And I had a couple of friends that had gone with me to the camp, and I was just walking around the camp on my own, just minding my own business, just kind of in my own thoughts. And I remember my friends said they saw me walking around, and at the time there were a bunch of frogs that would always come out at night, and they saw me walking around, and there were just a bunch of frogs around me, and it was like, "Look, it's Chad, king of the frogs," and I was just like, I don't remember any of. Well, I remember walking around by myself, but I don't remember any frogs at all. But yeah.
I could think of significantly worse things to be made fun of.
I guess. I think I don't know.
I
I
mean,
like the
there's
camp.
Aquaman. He's king of the fish. Like, I'd rather be king of the frogs. They can at least come on land.
Hey, don't hate on Aquaman. Aquaman is amazing now. Like it took them 10, 15 years to make Aquaman amazing, but he is kind of amazing.
But
He still
there's what
has
I'm
the name
saying. Like being
Aquaman.
Frogman is, it's not like Frog Suit in Mario 3 where all you're doing is challenging yourself.
Oh, I hate Frog Suit Mario so much. I love Raccoon Suit Mario. It's so awesome. For the longest time, I thought raccoons actually could fly, and I was just like, nope, this is stupid. But, but yeah, Frog Suit Mario. That was random.
And that's I think the point, and that's what I want to get through is, like I just want this to be fun and kind of spontaneous, and obviously like the guiding principle, and I think we'll start in about 2 minutes or 1 minute probably when I'm done ranting. The guiding principle is kind of that story of how you got there, but like no story is perfectly linear, boring. I got on I-95. I drove all the way from New York to Florida. That was it. Like there's always side trips. I had to go to the bathroom in the funkiest place, and so you never know, and that's the joy of it.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to, I guess, officially start this off because I will be editing this when putting it up on YouTube. Although maybe I'll just put it up and we'll see. So hello and welcome everyone to the first Fireside chat. I have with me the wonderful Chad Stewart.
I'm not that wonderful, but I appreciate it.
You're wonderful because so the story behind this is my original guest had unforeseen circumstances and could not be here today. And to be fair, I sprung it on him a few last-ish minute. It was maybe, I don't know, over the weekend that we figured this out. So I threw this together really quickly, and Chad totally stepped up to the plate and said, yeah, sure, why not? I'll do this. So for that alone, you are wonderful, but there are other reasons as well.
Much appreciated.
But so the goal of this chat is to talk to different people about what their journey has been in technology and kind of how they got to where they are. And the goal is to showcase that there's not one path to becoming a developer, and that being a developer is not like, it's not like if you're good at maths, you should be a developer. And so it's really kind of just to showcase more of that human side of things. And also the campfire aspect is I want to make this fun. Like, I would like this to seem like something that you'd throw on a podcast and listen on a long drive and, get some humor out of it as well. So yes, this is the first of it. So hopefully it's I'm not flundering and blundering too much. But Chad, I guess I'll give you a short bit to introduce yourself, and then we'll get the ball rolling.
Oh man, now I have to come up with an intro. So I'm Chad Stewart. I'm a software developer, currently in Kingston, Jamaica. I'm a front end. I guess my focus is front end now, but I'm more of a full stack developer, more with PHP from back in the day. Now trying to learn Node.js, MongoDB, and I know MySQL, and I'm trying to learn. Well, I haven't started, but I'm trying to. My intention is to learn Postgres. In terms of anything else, I guess I'm a pretend esports athlete. In the sense that I play esports games, mostly fighting games, and I've been doing so on and off for about, I guess, on and off in a competitive sense for about 10 years, 11 years,
Awesome.
For about 11 years. I was actually playing Street Fighter until Capcom decided that they need to update servers, so they just booted everybody off. Get off, So, and I was just like, "Oh, it's 8. That will just give me 30 minutes to prepare for this." So
I have a parallel question. So, with a game like Street Fighter, so for those of you, you'll probably better be able to explain this, but in the competitive esports world, there are. Well, first off, in Street Fighter, there's a whole lot of versions. Like every few years, they come out with new versions, and that's more just I don't want to say more for the casual player, but that's for the money reasons. But a few
Right.
versions tend to stick and be the ones that are competitive. So,
Right.
for example, with like Smash Brothers, they tend to get more competitive on the newer ones. But even when the newer ones come out, the older ones remain a competitive scene usually for quite a few years. So, I guess the question
Right.
is, because this happens in software development. Like, there's a gajillion versions of PHP, but you're like, nah, I know
Right.
5.2, so I'm just gonna stick with 5.2, or I'm gonna stick with 5.6 and 7. Nah, not right now. So I guess before we get into too much of your backstory, so when it comes to Street Fighter, what version did you stick with, and why, or did you keep upgrading
Um.
every time the new one came out?
So it's interesting. So, I would say the fighting game community, at the very least, let me make the distinction
Okay.
that Street Fighter is a little bit more unique
Okay.
than other fighting game. Well, I would have to have an argument about this, and I don't think I'm prepared to do that.
That's
But,
right. Let's just talk about Street Fighter.
um, yeah, so like the thing about a lot of the versions of Street Fighter is that they're very different. So like I'm going to try not to use the names that we use in the FGC. So Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo is very different from Street Fighter Alpha 2, which is very different from Street Fighter Alpha 3, which is very different from Street Fighter Third Strike, and which is different from Street Fighter 4, which is different from Street Fighter 5. So the base principle of all the Street Fighter games are fairly the same, but the unique interactions between the characters are vastly different. So different that the communities that you tend to either stick with that game. Like I would say Street Fighter 4 was really the first game where you transitioned into, you just kind of, okay, I'm playing 4, and then another one comes out, and then you play that one. But most of the time you like Super Turbo, which is the shortening for Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo, has its own community which has existed. I think Super Turbo came out in like 94, 95. It has existed for 30 years. It's probably the longest running. It's not esports in the sense that people make money off of it. People play it for the passion, but people play it still, and they play it very heavily. In fact, there are the way people played against certain characters that changed 10 years after the game released, because people had stuck with it for so long, and they had realized little quirks about the game as the FGC grew. Um, I personally play Street Fighter 5. I started with Street Fighter 4 competitively. Um, I started literally the day Street Fighter 4 came out. That's when I kind of count when I started competitively. But I've been playing Street Fighter all my life. I started, I think, when I was 6, or when I was 5, because I was playing it on my Super Nintendo. Like, we had arcades in Jamaica, but arcades are not like wasn't a huge thing. So a lot of the times a lot of the games we had to play on console, and then we have some arcade experience. My arcade experience is very limited,
Mm-hmm.
but I started playing on the Super Nintendo, played on the Genesis. That was Super Street Fighter 2, because Super Turbo didn't get a console release, I believe, officially. Um, then I played the PlayStation version, which is EX plus Alpha, which is like a spin-off. And then I stopped playing for a couple of years. Started playing Street Fighter Third Strike. When I had moved to Florida, we had a group that played. Then Street Fighter 4 came out, and that's when I said that I would say my more competitive um, scene, my competitive like career. It's a hobby, but yeah,
No,
that's
I
when
hear
I
you.
yeah I took it more seriously in a sense. But yeah, they're all very different. Like
Mm-hmm.
so much so, like again, that they have separate scenes because of how different they are.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, like I stick with 5, but like there's a game that's coming back recently. Actually, two is Marvel versus Capcom 2 and Capcom versus SNK 2, because people are able to emulate it more practically now and play online, and so they're running tournaments now. But before, it was really hard to play those games because you just couldn't find people to play. Like, you had to be in like a city that had a lot of
Hmm.
players. But they're very separate, and a lot of those scenes are very active. Like some of the kind of mid games, like Street Fighter 2 Championship Edition, they have people that play them, but not so much. But I would say the big three is Super Turbo, Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo, Alpha 3. Even though there's an Alpha 2, there's strong alpha, there's people still playing alpha 2, and then there's third strike, which if you don't know, in fact, third strike is one of the more famous ones because there's a video of a player doing an amazing comeback, which everybody has kind of seen. It came out in 2000, I think it came out in 2006, but it
I'm
was on
sure I've seen
YouTube.
it.
Yeah, where he parried a bunch
Oh
of,
yeah.
like, yeah. So I would say third strike is I won't say it's the more famous one because obviously Street Fighter Five exists and it exists during the internet age, but Third Strike was the one that, like, people saw this thing and it kind of became even more of a cultural thing. In fact, Third Strike was a big part of the reason why people started coming back into fighting games, because I saw that and I was like, I want to be able to do that, and so yeah.
It's
But yeah,
the intersection of gaming and tech. A lot of my friends early on, that's how that got started. Was downloading some games from a BBS, and because they had to figure out how to get it working, or because they wanted to mod it or things like that. That's it's always interesting. All right, so let's so
yeah.
let's let's start a little in this journey. So what's your first memory using I'm gonna call it a computer. So not a calculator, but like something that was just a little more than a calculator.
So I had a Packard Bell in 94, 95. I would say that was my first computer. I think it came with 95, actually. It came with Windows 95,
Ooh.
and I ran the hell out of that machine. Like, ran up crazy phone bills because I was getting on the internet. I was telling you earlier, the modem that I used initially, or the modem that I remember using the most, was a 28.8K modem,
Mm-hmm.
and I did some outrageous things. I don't know if you were there at the virtual coffee. This was several years later, but I don't know if you were there at the virtual coffee when I told everybody that I spent a weekend over at my friend's house, downloading a copy of Windows XP, and I just ran the computer all weekend.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, going back to the Packard Bell, like I think we had two games on it. We had Doom, of course, because Doom is on every bloody
Everyone
thing.
had Doom. Yeah.
And I think my brother had Need for Speed, and I think both of them we had to either, I won't say we had to, but we ran them. We had to open up the command prompt to run them. I think we could. We The way we ran them was that we had to get. Oh, it's no problem. Where did you leave? What was the last thing you heard?
Now, what was
That was
internet
the last
for
thing.
you, and where were you at this point? Because I know you've
What do
lived
you
a few
mean?
different areas.
So I mean, I was still in Jamaica at the time, and internet was, I don't even know. I mean,
Well, was it
it's
CompuServe? Was it AOL? I'm not because I don't know what was in Jamaica at the
oh
time.
oh oh
Like when you say
cable
connecting to the
and
internet, I mean, did you have ISPs down there? I'm thinking. I mean, I guess
yeah,
late
yeah,
'90s you probably had. I just again I don't know what the situation was like.
yeah. Cable and wireless Jamaica. That's what we used, or at least that's what I think that was the only internet provider at the time. I mean, I might be wrong, but definitely, I remember cable and wireless because I we kind of stuck with the that kind of company because it was like cable and wireless, which became Lime, which became Flow, and I think Flow is what it is now. But we more or less have the same company. But either way, that's not the point. The point is, it was cable and wireless.
Okay.
That's what I stuck with. I mean, um, in terms of I don't know because it's like what I remember about the internet from back then is like I almost said Dreamweaver. What is it? Macromedia. What is that? Because it was before Flash. Um,
Shockwave? Well, I mean, no.
yes, Macromedia Shockwave.
Okay.
Macromedia. No, is it Macro? Whatever.
Yeah.
Shockwave. Yes, that was the internet's attempt at multimedia on
Yes.
web pages. So there was a lot of that, and then Flash, you know, started, and I remember going to because I think a couple of years later, Cartoon Network had picked up Dragon Ball Z, and so they made a Dragon Ball Z Flash page, and it ran horribly on my machine. God awful.
It probably would
Like
still run horribly on your machine.
you probably yeah. I just remember it literally took 5 minutes for it to do the intro animation before you could actually use the page. Like it was just oh
Now,
god. Uh,
did you ever attempt any Flash programming or Flash
um
animations, I should say, depending on how you looked at it?
okay, so I went to art school when I
Mm-hmm.
first went to Florida, and we did I learned action script.
Okay.
We so I think I made one website in Flash, like completely in Flash, and I think we used XML to communicate to the website because I know like just doing things in Flash was a pain. Like just getting the data out of Flash was just it wasn't fun. At the very least, it wasn't fun for people who were really new to programming. So, but I learned that in school. Obviously, I never really went anywhere with it. I made a few animations because again, I went to an art school, but I wouldn't nothing that I was like overly proud of. Like I think my first art class, they had us or the first like web design class because that's what it was. They wanted us to make just like a video in Flash, and I made a video like promoting a company, and the video was supposed to mimic Mission Impossible's intro theme. So it's like, a match and so on and so forth. But this is like horrible Flash animation. This is like, okay, I just found a match on the internet and I cut it out in Photoshop. And then I'm moving it. I'm moving it with tweens or whatever it was at the time. And yeah, that was my horrible, horrible like Flash animation.
So, was that your first experience coding, and was that in school, or did you toy around with it? Back
Um,
in, I guess, high school.
I toyed around with it I'm sorry, I'm skipping
No,
all
that's
over my
okay.
time. I toyed around with it in high school. I actually, and I don't remember what language I learned in high school, to be quite honest. Probably Visual Basic. But it's kind of weird because, like, so, so we had what is it? I almost said LAN arcade, LAN center
Mm-hmm.
in Jamaica. And one of the killer games was Counter Strike,
Mm-hmm.
and so what ended up happening is the land center, it got difficult for them to get people off the machine. So they made a program so that the machine would lock you out after a certain time. And then, there was a host machine at the front desk. Um, Whatever, but like Counter Strike was the big thing. And what they also offered is like they did scripting so that, like, say you wanted to buy a specific gun, you would set the script and you would just like press one or whatever keyboard button, and it would buy the gun automatically, and then it would buy all the ammo that you would fill up on ammo
Hmm.
for that gun. And I don't remember exactly how the scripting worked, but we were interested in that, so we were just like, oh, we're going to do that, at home, because obviously we decided that we're going to play Counter Strike at home. And so I would say that and Visual Basic was really my first foray into programming.
Now, was
Uh,
Visual Basic? I assume that was through school. No one would ever put
yeah,
themselves through that torture at home.
yeah. It was through school. It was through school. That's what they had offered. It was like, okay, whatever.
So what was the first thing you remember? I guess because Visual Basic is somewhat compiled in a way. Um, like, what was the first program you remember finishing and actually like running and I don't know feeling? Did you get that? So when my first big application, so to speak, or whatever, like when it ran and I was playing it and think like I got this like, oh my gosh, this is awesome, this is amazing. Like it was this wonderful feeling. So I will never forget it. But did you like have a moment like that? And what do you remember about it?
Not so not with programming, or at least not with programming when I was young, because like I was always just fascinated with computers in general. So in Jamaica at the time, we had a exam called CXC, Common Entrance. No, that's sorry, that was for prep school. Uh, Whatever, CXC. So that's like you would take like classes and so on and so on. I said common interest. Anyways, you take classes, and then you'd be like, okay, you have to take exam, and like all of the Caribbean would take the exam around the same time, if
Mm-hmm.
not all at the same time. And you would get graded, and that's how you would like say, oh, you could get into college. So it's like
Yep.
SATs, except for the Caribbean. Um, I was doing, I guess, a computer course for CXC, and I remember bringing my machine, and the machine had some problem, or it's either it had some problem or we couldn't use the hard drive or whatever. And this was my personal machine because the school didn't have too many machines at the time, and we just ripped it open. We just unscrewed like whatever we needed to unscrew, and we started pulling things out, and we're just like, oh, we need to move the hard drive. And we I think we changed the hard drive out, and we might have installed like Windows or something, or just had like a bare bones Windows install or something like that. But I kind of enjoyed that. Like that was kind of like my wow, this is really cool moment. Even though obviously I knew what I was doing before, it was just so cool to just be hanging, just be doing stuff like that. Like I don't know. I was talking to you before. Well, I don't know if I was talking to you before, but I kind of build custom machines, and I mean
Mm-hmm.
that's not necessarily like a big deal now because it's bloody Legos nowadays. But
Yeah.
I built custom machines, and like that's
I think
I
custom
I
builders today don't know what a jumper is. Whereas the jumper
yeah.
cable, the jumper settings were the most critical part of getting it right. You had them wrong, and you might fry your BIOS on first boot.
Oh, really? I had never gotten to the point where I was building machines and there was like significant what you call it, significant risk of blowing the board up or anything like that. Though
Oh
I've seen
yeah,
some
okay.
very
You
interesting
missed you
things.
missed a definitely frustrating time in PC development.
Yeah, yeah. Like I wasn't a part of the age where when you overclock the machine, you overclocked it because you're just like, I'm not buying a damn processor. Or I'm not buying. It wasn't even a G. I guess it was a GPU. Was it a GPU at the time? Because I remember like the Voodoo was the big like. graphics accelerator at the time, but I don't know if they were like officially called GPUs at the time.
Uh,
Um,
I mean, I called it a VGA graphics card, so no, I don't think it was called a
uh,
G. Um, I'm not sure when it started being called the GPU though. So
yeah, but I had missed like that. Like I said, I kind of started building machines when they were when it was more like putting Legos together. Like I would say at best, I was there for I don't remember what was the ribbon cable again, was because I'm thinking SCSI and I don't think that's the right
I
thing.
think SATA.
No, it so SATA is what, well, is SATA what we have
Well,
now?
SATA is
Because
the really tiny one. IDE
yeah,
cables are the ones that it's what is it 30,
IDE
32
cables.
pins, 32 pins wide. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was IDE cables, and like if you plug them in wrong, it would automatically set one drive to master and one drive to
Oh
slave or so.
yes.
Oh, madness, absolute madness. Like it's kind of funny. I don't know. There's this random video from probably 20 years ago that I remember where they were trying to showcase what would happen if you took a heat sink off of a processor, and it was an AMD processor, a really old AMD processor. And AMD processors, even to this day, are known to get fairly hot, like fairly
Oh
quickly.
yeah.
And so these guys are running it was Unreal. It was the first Unreal tournament. They're running Unreal tournament. It's just the board on on a wooden table or on some table, it doesn't matter.
Mhm.
And they have the heatsink like unscrewed, but the heatsink is still on the machine. So they're like, oh, this is what happens. And they pull the heatsink off and the processor instantly explodes. Instantaneously. Like within the first second and a half, the processor literally blew up. And you could look you looked at the board and there was a hole through the board and there was a hole through the table.
Well,
Like you could look
you,
down on the
you'll
ground.
appreciate this. So my first like really expensive machine that I built was a dual core AMD. And I have to admit, I did not know what thermal paste was when I built it.
Oh no, oh no.
So I mean, I splurged and had like $50, heat sinks and fans on these puppies, but I got a good, I don't know. I actually am impressed. I got 6 months of use out of them before they just stopped working.
Are you serious?
I got
6 months?
6 months of. I mean, I
Wow.
actually like knowing what I know now. I am surprised I got 6 hours of use out of them. It was
That's
a
what
dual core
I'm
machine,
like.
and yeah, AMD is nonetheless. Yeah.
Jesus.
But I was always
six
wondering. I'm like, why
months.
is my CPU running at like 85, 90 centigrade? I'm like, why? What's going on here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't even know how I came across thermal paste because at first I didn't know anything about. Oh, I bought a book. That's what happened. So when I was building my
Books.
first machine, I was like, yeah, and because I was like, screw it, I'm paying $1,000 for this. I am not going to blow this machine up and then pay another $1,000. That's stupid. So I bought a book and I read the hell out of that book multiple times. And yeah, I think the book suggested thermal paste. It's either the book or oh man, I had a awesome computer teacher when I first went to the Art Institute of Fort Lauderdale. The guy was awesome. He apparently was there when they had launched like the internet, like as a thing. I think it was '92, and they had like the ribbon cutting. He was like physically there, and he was like he had gotten rich off of something computer related, and I loved talking to him. I had a class with him, and he passed away a little bit after. He passed away a year after I had my class with him. And it kind of sucked. He was kind of like my mentor because he was like everybody else, because they were all artists. They were just
Mhm.
kind of like, I don't care about computers, and I was the only one that always talked about computers. Like I remember he gave the class an assignment on how to build a machine. Just like what kind of parts would you you put into it. And they're like, oh, you can go to Dell and just, build a laptop or build a desktop. And I literally, this funny enough, this is the first custom machine I built. I just took the parts that I was like, hey, this is what I'm going to buy. And I gave it to him, and he was just like, I'm just going to give you an A. Like, if you're talking about motherboards and thermal paste, you know what the hell you're doing. I was like, yeah. But yeah, love that guy.
So how did you end up in art school, and how did you forgive my ignorance if this question sounds stupid, how did you end up in America for school?
Okay, so my brother was in the States at the time, and I was in Jamaica, and I had no idea what I wanted to do. I was really big into gaming. I mean, I guess I'm kind of am now, but I was really
Just a
big
little
into
bit.
gaming at the time. Yeah, just a tad,
Whatever.
just a tad. But I was really big into gaming at the time, and one of the things I wanted to do is like, I'm going to become a game designer because that's what stupid kids do when they play video games too much. It's like, I'm going to make me some video games. And so a friend had gone to the Art Institute of Fort Lauderdale. I don't remember what degree he took, but he was like, "Hey, if you want to do game design, you should go to the Art Institute. They have a game design program."
Oh,
And I was
okay.
like, "Okay, cool. I'll go do that." And my brother had invited me in essence to Fort Lauderdale, and so I went. So I went and I actually I don't remember what I had to do, but I had to get my GED first. So I went to the States and I I took a GED, the GED, which was just so that the United States would have something, which funny
Mm-hmm.
enough, I still have the document, would have something to say, okay, this person completed high school.
Yeah.
And then I and then I registered for classes. But the issue is that I had stopped drawing. I drew. I was an artist initially, artist, whatever. But I drew, and I'd stopped drawing for several years. And they were like, "Oh, for you to join the game design program, you need to have a portfolio." And I was just like, I don't have a portfolio. And I was like, oh, well, what else could I do? It's like, oh, do this interactive media program. That'll work. And it just happened to be, you know, web design with elaborate name in front of it. And so that's how I ended up at art school. And I did web design for a couple of years.
So did you? So when you graduated, did you like what were your thoughts on like what was next? Was it like, all right, this web thing is gonna work and I want to do it? Like what did you want to do and what did you end up doing?
I had no clue. So, I think a year or 2 years before I graduated, I realized that I didn't like web design
Okay.
a lot. But I'm bullheaded, I finish what I start. And so I was like, I'm finishing this, you know what I mean? And I just didn't think about going to another school. But I was just like, oh, I'm going to finish this and I'm going to try and get web design stuff. And I'm still writing code and it's fine. I have to put out like actual designs, which I was god awful at, but that's fine. I'm writing code here and there. That's cool. So when I graduated, um, I went to work for a friend, and I did that. Like I had an internship, and I went to work for a friend, and I was also looking for more traditional work, and that didn't necessarily work out very well. And so I'm kind of sitting in my apartment. It's like, what the hell do I do? And funny enough, I was playing Street Fighter with friends of mine, and he was just like, "Hey, when I went to school, I went to school at Nova, and I really enjoyed Nova. It was a really good school. I think maybe it might be some place to explore." And I was just like, you know what? Why not? And so, and so I went, and I was just like, that funny. So the stupid thing is that I didn't know what the term computer science was
Okay.
up until that point. I didn't know that computer science was a thing. Like when we said programming, we just said programming. I didn't know there
Gotcha.
was a software engineer. I didn't know there were developers. Like the terms that we take for granted now were not even alien to me because they didn't exist. You know. Um, anyways, I found out about went to talk to Nova and I was like, "What is your computer courses?" And it's like, "Oh, we have a computer science course." And I ended up enrolling in that. And I I don't know if I would say that the rest is history, but that's kind of what happened.
So, I apologize. I am unfamiliar with Nova. Is that a college, a boot camp? What is Nova?
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
So it's called Nova Southeastern University. It's a university in Fort Lauderdale.
Okay.
I think it's mainly known for people going there before they go to medical school. So they actually
Okay.
built a hospital, or they were building a hospital when I left. And that was like their thing. That was the thing that brought people in. I think, yeah, there were a lot of doctors there because I had a friend who also went to the art institute, but he had gone to Nova first to study medicine. I don't remember exactly how that works,
Okay.
but that's where I got my computer science degree. Um, Actually, it's a software engineering degree because what ended up happening is I started in computer science, and then I took a software engineering class that literally was called software engineering. And I loved the class so much that I found out that there was a software engineering degree. And the only real difference between um, NSU, which is the college, NSU's version of computer science and its version of software engineering was that software engineering was more focused on like teaching you agile principles, and I was so fascinated by that, by the class. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to switch my major to software engineering, and I did that,
Okay.
and that's kind of how I learned a lot about agile.
So was that
Yeah.
2 year or 4 year degree? And
It
I
was a
guess
four
so.
year.
So in art school, or I guess, so did you do the full 4 years there, or you
Yeah,
had?
I did. So I have two 4 year degrees. Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
So and now, how is the different? How was it different? And I guess you weren't that much older, but I imagine the college experience has got to be different when you're quote unquote college age and you're party-ish versus when you're a little more mature and have tasted the real world. And you know, was it any
Uh,
different for you, or how was it different?
I would say it wasn't really different for me. I would even go as far as to say that, well, outside of not having too many people I interact with here, no, but like the way I interacted with people during my stints at college was like my house was the hangout spot, so everybody came and hung out here, but came and hung out at my apartment, and that was just how it was. So like at NSU, because it was a more traditional university, it felt, I guess, more traditional in a sense. Like I don't really want to go into the Art Institute of Fort Lauderdale's setup. It's kind of weird, and like there was a lot of politics
Mm-hmm.
as I was coming to the end of my degree. But NSU was more like of a when I say more of a traditional college experience, I would say like if you don't know what the college experience is and you watched a movie and then you went to college, that's what it kind of felt like. It felt like you were in a coming of age, I guess, teen movie, tween, I don't know, whatever, tween, but yeah, the teen movie, bleh, you know what I mean? So, but in terms of how I carried myself, it was always the same way. I had a group of friends. We were friends for some weird reason. Like in art school, I had a group of friends, and we were just kind of like the anime game nerd people, because then you would have the comic book nerd people, and then you'd have the animation nerd people. And in NSU, even though I didn't have too many friends directly from NSU, at the very least, that came over, um, I was the fighting game. I was around the fighting game nerd people, and so even though obviously the activities that we did were very much different, um, like the essence of why we came together is like we had something where we're coming to chill out and do this particular thing, and we're just going to do that. Most of the time is come and chill out and play video games, but like as I went towards more fighting games, it was more fighting games that got played as opposed to playing. Well, we play Smash, but like playing was it Doku Doku Panic? No, sorry, that's the wrong game. There's a GameCube game where you play like a D&D style game, even though it's anime. It's like a D&D style game. I'd have to look it up and let you know. But we'd play something like that, or we'd watch a friend play like various Nintendo games. We would play old school retro games because this guy had like he had kind of was born and raised in Florida, so like whenever he got games, he never got rid of them. So he had like his old NES and so on and so forth, and so he would bring that over and we would play that. And then, like I said, as we went to as I started hanging out with more fighting game people, all of that just kind of got replaced with Street Fighter. So it's like, oh, we're gonna come and we're gonna play Street Fighter, and then it was Street Fighter 4, and then it was cross Tekken, Street Fighter, cross Tekken, and then Marvel. I need to stop using it. Marvel versus Capcom 3, and then Ultimate Marvel versus Capcom 3, and then eventually Street Fighter 5. But the essence of me being around, like the essence of my college experience stayed the same. I had a group of people who I was close with. We had like a particular activity that we did, and everybody was just like, go to Chad's house and do said activity, which is generally somehow play video games. So that I don't know. I don't think my college experience was that much different. Like
Okay.
I don't even imagine them being. I imagine the lessons that I learned from both college experiences being different, but I don't imagine them being different in like how I get kind of flowed through them, I would say.
Makes sense. Now, have the worlds of video games and your kind of personal interests ever collided with your, I guess I'll call them professional interests of software development? Have they ever clashed? So clash is the wrong word. Have they ever intersected in an interesting or fun way?
Um, yes, and it's really weird. So I am actually fairly convinced that fighting games and programming or development is a lot more similar than you would think, and
Okay.
I would. It's difficult to explain because it's been a while since I've actually kind of went through these thoughts in my head. So when I was learning to play Street Fighter,
Well, I can tell you
and
when I'm dealing with a bug, I feel like someone's beating the living crap out of me. So I can
oh no,
understand.
no, it's not like that. It's it's kind of like how you approach problems. So the reason why I say this is because the same problem solving technique that I use in programming, I actually use. I don't want to say the problem solving techniques. The the way I solve problems got fostered in Street Fighter because Street Fighter is more, there's more stakes in a sense on the line, and and the input and output is a lot more rigid. Or no, sorry, the data that you get from your decisions happen a lot more quickly. Like
Mm-hmm.
in programming, that doesn't happen as fast. But I really feel like my time being a competitive Street Fighter player has made me a great programmer because, or I don't want to say has made me a great programmer because I don't have evidence of that, but it has cultivated my ability to do development well because there's a lot, and I mean maybe it's just my experience, but the way you make decisions in Street Fighter, like Street Fighter has, so there's like base things about Street Fighter where it's like you have kind of like, so you have these things called normals. They're just your regular attacks. When you
Mm-hmm.
press the button and you don't do anything, it does an attack, right? We call them normals in the fighting game community. Yeah, we call them normals. You can associate those normals with like primitives in
Mm-hmm.
programming. And then you have specials, which are like, oh, you press a button, but you have to do some funky motion. And then you can say those specials, and I'm sorry if this sounds kind of off, but you can say those specials are close to like, like specific methods in the language that you're using. And then, so what you get when you pick a character in Street Fighter, you get a list of special. You get the normals. You get particular normals. You get maybe interesting, like they call them command normals.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like you have to hold forward and you press a button and you get a unique attack that is unique to the character. And then you have specials where you have to do the funky motion. Like, so you have a collection of tools. That's really what they are. They're a collection of tools. And it's the same thing in programming, and you have to take those tools and you have to figure out how to do 100% of damage to the opponent, given these tools based on the character that you choose. And programming is very similar, where it's just like you have the same tools, and no, you're not trying to take 100% of damage away from your opponent, but you're trying to solve a problem. And these are the collections of tools that you have, and you try to apply those tools in a somewhat correct way to solve the problem. And the thing about both programming and fighting games is that a lot of the times you don't have a hard, this is the right answer and this is the wrong answer. Like the joke in program in development is the more senior you are as a developer, the more it becomes the more that you answer things as it depends. And it's the same way in fighting games. And like again, these thoughts are fairly old, so like I'm probably not articulating them the best, but I like the way I think about playing fighting games and the way I think about programming is really, really, really similar. And the way I'm going to, could you give me 1 second? Because my phone is ringing to tell me to
Sure.
go to
Yep.
bed. Give me one moment.
All right. Well, we do have one question queued up. But if anyone else has any questions, just throw them down in chat, and I will ask them. Oh, we got them back.
Yeah, sorry
All right,
about
welcome
that.
back. So yeah, there
yeah.
was one question from Sarah. What is your unicorn dev job? And by that, that means like if you could carve out and like have that perfect job, best thing, and it pays you more than enough money, what would it be?
Wow. Okay, so this is actually simple, and I feel really bad that it is simple.
No, you should not feel bad. That's a good thing. You should knowing what you want is half the battle.
Yeah, it's just I would say it's working at Google. Um, Mainly because
Working at what?
I
Sorry?
don't know exactly. Working at Google.
Google. Okay.
The reason why I say that is because, and I mean,
Well,
I'm not
doing
exactly
what at Google? Google's a big place that you can do it. I mean, you could be working on Google Cloud infrastructure. You could be working on under the sea at one of their data warehouses. Like, doing what for Google?
The thing is, I as of right now, I'm not sure. Like, I'm in a point in my journey where I am much more exploratory
Okay.
than, so I'm not as exploratory now because like you actually need some set of skills to offer an employer, and so it's like I need to cultivate those skills, and that what I've chosen is Node.js because I was doing React, and I was
Mm-hmm.
just like, why not stay with JavaScript? But I just like I was talking I think I made a post in Virtual Coffee where like my kind of end game, if as it were, I didn't want to use that phrase. My end game is just being paid to ask and answer questions. Like I try to stay like I don't want to say tool. I'm interested in doing anything. So like I'm interested in learning about machine learning. I'm interested in doing full stack development. Um, I'm I very much respect front end development now because front end development does so much. Like, it's the sales funnel for whatever application that you're doing, and then there's a psychology aspect in human computer interaction, and I feel like I'm underselling software development, but like software front end development. But there's so much, and I just want to learn. Um, so like I don't really have a focus. In fact, that's kind of where I am now. Like, what is my focus? That's something that I'm trying to figure out. Like, I know I want to do full stack development, but the mere fact that I've chosen full stack development is because even though I'm not necessarily the best at front end development, it's still something I'm interested in and something I respect and something that I would love to be a part of. But I love the abstract nature of back end development, and I'm not willing to choose because I just love it. I just love tech. I don't know how else to describe it. I just like I still love building computers. So when I was building computers, when I was building custom PCs, like I got into overclocking and I sat down and I learned a lot about how processors work and how GPUs work. Don't actually ask me how to tell you any of those things now,
That's right. No,
but
again, I'm not here to challenge you. I'm not Barbara Walters. I'm not gonna.
no, but like
There's no live
um
fact checking. There's not an offensive chirons at the bottom here.
yeah, no, I hear you. But like I like learning about like how processors work and how GPUs work and like even heat sinks like how heat sinks dissipate heat, and like there was something interesting that I was remember reading about 5 years ago where they were thinking of doing cooling for processors by literally putting piping in the processor itself and then piping liquid, or I don't know what they would pipe because this is like at like the
Hmm.
nanometer level, but piping something through it so that it could draw the heat directly from the cores, the CPU cores, and then having it dissipate into the atmosphere. Um, what was it? I don't remember what's the memory, the type of memory called. But so generally, when you're putting memory chips on a board, you put it I guess horizontal. I don't know how to describe it. Horizontally, you just put it flat on the board, right?
Hmm.
So each chip is just flat on the board, and then now they have some they have like memory where they put the memory chips on top of each other, and putting the chips on top of each other reduces the space that the electrons actually have to travel, either between the chips or from the chip to the CPU. And so, but all of that stuff fascinates me. You know what I mean? Just
Hmm.
even talking about that fascinates me. I remember when I was in school, I was working in the network lab, and I was supposed to be doing some stuff, and I went into excuse me, I went into the computer science. I went into like a computer engineering lab. This is like they teach how to do like circuit boards and stuff like that, and they're talking about the processor. And I'm not even in this class, and the teacher's lecturing, and I was just like, oh, I have a question. So in when we're overclocking a computer, when we're overclocking a CPU, we have a phrase, winning the silicon lottery, which is in essence you get the CPU that you can overclock very well. And I was just like, but I never understood why. And so he was like, oh, it's probably because that the CPU is coming from the center of the wafer, and so the wafer it's more stable,
Mm-hmm.
and so you can like pump more power into it and it won't blow up as or what. I remember again. I'm
It's
not
been a while.
necessarily. Yeah, it's been a while, but just like asking and answering those questions, like that's why when I say I just want to work at Google, like that's kind of the reason why I want to work there, because there's so much you could potentially do there. So you could literally bounce around for years, just like, oh, I'm on this project. I don't want to say that it's going to be easy to just go around
Mm-hmm.
different teams, but like there's so much you can potentially learn there. So I don't even care. I could be there sweeping floors
Well,
for all I care.
um, I want to offer just a small counter to your logic there. So
Right.
a company like Google is so big, they don't want generalists. So when you're working in their back end on their cloud infrastructure, they want someone who is going to be an expert and figure out how to drastically optimize one specific function.
Right,
And
right, right,
so
right,
you
right, right.
do have the
Yes.
opportunity to learn, and you certainly can. And at a company like that, you can take on different jobs to learn different things. But at a small company, especially more of a startup or a mom and pop shop, or 20 employees less, they have no choice
They're
but to
more
rely on you to do everything. So you are forced to do front end
right,
one
right.
day, back end the next day, and you get to learn without worrying about efficiency. So for example, again, you can write a function that it runs fine if there's only 1,000 users because this only has 100 users. So you're fine. Whereas Google's like, does this
Right,
run
right.
fine for 1 billion users? No, go do it again.
Right,
So
right,
so
right, right, right.
just to give you a different perspective on that when looking for opportunities, is that you actually might be given more chance to both experiment and try a lot of different things at a small company than you would at a large.
Yes, I definitely agree with you. But one of the other things is that, like smaller companies, I don't know, but there's always the conversation of like which company, because I live in Jamaica
Yep.
and I'm trying to move out to Jamaica, which company is going to give you a work visa. And like I know that the larger companies will, so that was
Oh
also
yeah, and
a thing. But
there's
like I don't.
certainly, there's a lot of considerations to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I just I like in my own research, I kind of just chose Google because I guess I'm more attached to their, and I'm not trying to be as married to the company as in a sense in my head, but I'm not trying to be as married. Like it's the only option that
Yeah.
exists. But if it and I also try not to be married to the idea of a dream job, but if it was a job that like I rub a magic lamp and a genie pops up and it's the job gifting genie, I guess, like in a suit and tie and everything. But he's like, "What job do you want, son?" And I was just like, "Can I work at Google?" Granted, that's kind of like, you know what I mean?
So we're running close on time, and I know your phone did just tell you to go to sleep. So I will have one last question, and if you want to stay on, we can, but I will let you go after that. So, if you had a chance to write a letter to your 16 or 15 teenage self, what advice would you give? And so yeah, I guess we'll just leave it simple like that.
Oh,
See,
what?
you get one page tops. So and it
Okay,
cannot include stock symbols.
okay, okay. I would say to my 16-year-old self that the gaming landscape will change in the seventh generation of video games, and you are more likely to dislike it and not continue wanting to be a game developer. And computer science is a term that exists out in the world.
That's a good one.
Please explore it. Like, I legit did not know what computers. I knew what IT was. I knew what information technology was, and so and but yeah, uh, and explore computer science. But it's really hard because, to be honest, I like my journey, and I like the fact that I was kind of exposed to the left brain and the right brain kind of side of, culturally.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that's made me an extremely well rounded person. Um, so it's hard for me to say that I would want to trade like my life experiences, but there are obviously some decisions that I've made that I wouldn't mind repeating. And I mean, they're minute, but they
Mm-hmm.
exist. So yeah,
Well, thank you so much for coming on. I really
no problem.
appreciate it. Everybody, this has been Chad Stewart. I will. Um, I guess I'll give you a chance to have any final comments if you'd like before doing a little outro, and then.
Uh, I'm not sure if I have final comments. I guess programming is hard. It's a difficult thing. I guess this is for the newer people. Programming is a very difficult thing to get into, and it's a very vast thing to get into. So, you know, stay informed, stay hungry, but also find friends, find people to enjoy the journey with. Like, there's this kind of weird, where we have a cultural image of the lone developer sit in a corner, a dark corner with a hoodie, typing away at his laptop. um, but like, we work in a field where we have to work on teams, and even then it's just like, you'd be surprised how wonderful of a social experience just talking with people who also program it. So just remember to find friends. Like, that's something I kind of struggle with now. Just remember to find people that you just kind of enjoy their company, and just program with, do work with them. You don't even necessarily have to do work with them, but just find a community. I would say, find a community, and just chill out with those guys. It's hard. It's hard to go. I'm trying to bring in the Zelda phrase. The old. It's like, it's dangerous to go alone. Take this. But I can't go for a good
That's a good question.
way.
That's a good question. You 16-year-old self walks into a room. An old wizard is standing there. Says it's dangerous to go alone. Take this. What does he give you? Uh,
That's a very good question. You probably give me a sword because I can't think of anything else.
he,
uh,
he'd give you a book on using thermal paste.
yeah, there you go. There you go. That's what he would do. I wish I had that book. I was just like, I remember looking at it like 3 or 4 years later when I started building computers again, and I was just like, why in God's name did I buy this? The internet exists. But my machine didn't blow up, so.
Well, but how do you access the internet to learn how to build a machine when your machine isn't built yet?
Ooh, ooh,
Big
ooh.
brain stuff
Oh,
here. Big brain stuff.
oh, wait. We had another computer, but it was just kind of whatever. It was just kind of crappy, and I was just building one for myself. So that's how you access it. But I don't mind staying on.
Yeah.
I don't
So
mind.
yeah, let's. I mean, we can totally keep chatting. But
Mhm.
yeah, I wanted to give you an out and a chance and opportunity. But so yeah, does anybody in chat have some questions? There was, so I know, because I know you're not really watching chat. So Nikki T said that when you said wafer, he wanted some cookies. It made him hungry. There was some good
Sorry.
reminders that it's good to have your dream job. Um, and so as of this recording, because this will go on YouTube, Chad is seeking his next great opportunity. So if you are looking for someone, full stack, back end, front end, who is hungry and excited, definitely hit him up. I've got his Twitter down below. Let's see. Hold on. I think I've. Oh, I got a full info. His LinkedIn, which is Chad R. Stewart, and GitHub, which is just Chad Stewart, but I lose the video, so I'm going to go back to the other screen that's got the video.
That's no problem.
Thank you, Becca, for the hearts. And for those, I'll just give a shout out. So I met Chad through a virtual coffee group, which was started by Becca, and I feel like I came in on maybe like the third or fourth coffee. I feel like I came in early in the process, but for all I know, it's been going on for a year. But it's basically just this Zoom where people get together and stop feeling. So yeah, so virtual coffee. So I had a wonderful teacher in college, and the wonderful teacher in college gave me some advice that I will always remember, and that is, to be successful in life, you have to be in the right place at the right time. And you can't control what the right place or the right time is, but I can tell you the right place is never your couch at home, and the right time can only ever be now. And the way I've always interpreted that is I can't change the past. So there's nothing I can do to be somewhere else in the past. And I can think about the future. Hold on, sorry. There was so how do I have Chad on the screen? I had to fake it on my stream with Zoom and quad stream feature for partners. I'm an affiliate, not a partner. And what I do is I have him on Discord, and then I am doing a window capture from Discord into OBS. So I can help you out with that at some point, Nikki. But yeah, so and I apologize. Is it Nick or Nikki? Because I just realized it could be Nick YT, like YouTube online, and I could be calling you Nikki, which is like my childhood name. And I know that if people was calling me Nikki, I would, yeah. Okay, so since I've just had 7 different tangents. So yeah, right place at the right time. And what that means is you have to put yourself in places where you want success to happen. So the way he equated that, especially when we were in college, was it's like dating. If you go to a bar every night, at some point you will meet somebody who you're, connected with, and you'll have that, but you'll meet people who go to bars. So if you want someone who's not like a drinker who goes to bars, go to the places that you want. So like if you want to meet someone who loves poetry, go to a poetry slam. Go to poetry slams every weekend, and sooner or later you'll be in the right place at the right time and meet someone who fits that. Whereas if you're just sitting on your couch, you're not going to be in the right place at the right time. So I went through all of this to say that I've noticed a few people, especially during quarantine, just throw out these like, hey, join my Zooms. And there's another one that's very interesting, not quite my style, that is run by La Code and V. I forget. She calls it The Vibe. I'm blanking.
Oh, Nicole.
Yeah, Nicole. Nicole Archimbault. I
Archimbault.
butchered her last name, so yeah. But she's a wonderful person and puts together a wonderful chat. But I tried it, and it was like, okay, just not my groove. But I went.
I go there all the time.
Yeah, and I might have met you there.
Oh, really?
I'm trying to either way, but so I tried that, and then I saw Becca had one called Virtual Coffee, and I was like, all right, let me try this. And immediately I'm like, these are my people. Like these are this just clicks with me. And going back to like what you had said, find that community. And the wonderful thing is the internet has allowed for so many different wonderful sub communities. So there's fighting game communities, there's the Neopets communities even today. Like there's all these different communities around different interests. And the good thing is some of them are toxic and some of them are great. And if you find a toxic one, just go find another one. Like, don't stay in a toxic community is like flat out best advice I can throw here. So I said all of this to say that virtualcoffee.io if you're interested in more information. But it is a wonderful, more chill, supportive adult second. I don't want to say second career-ish, but it tends to be skewed more towards people switching into development, and not necessarily like people just fresh graduating from college, even though we definitely have that as well. So how did you come to find Virtual Coffee?
Becca posted on Twitter and I saw it. It's pretty much it's not like this
How did you
amazing
know?
journey.
Do you know how you ended up following Becca?
I don't think I followed Becca. I just think I might have followed somebody else, and
Okay.
they had retweeted it. And Becca was just like, "Hey, anybody wants to come to my Zoom chat?" And I'm sitting there in quarantine, like, I don't have any friends. And I was just like, "Oh my god, a Zoom chat! I'll go." And, a couple months later, I still go. It's literally like, in fact, I found Nicole exact same way. I'm browsing through Twitter and I see Nicole is like, "Hey, I'm vibing. You want to come chill out?" And I had no idea who Nicole was, and I was just like, sent her a DM. I want to come chill, and she was like, "Oh, here's the Zoom link." I'm like, click, and off to the races. Literally, it wasn't like this epic journey of I'm trying to come up with a good story and I can't. But it wasn't. I did not fight a dragon, and then I was just like, "Oh, Becca," No, I just saw her on Twitter.
I'd be interested in hearing any story that involved fighting a dragon. But yeah. Now, so so I'm always fascinated by people's early experiences with the internet. So what did you use the internet for when you like? Because I believe when we chatted previously, you were noting like you weren't really big on AOL chat rooms or things like that. So what was the internet for you in your youth?
um, it's been a while, so I don't really remember. I know there was a few gaming stuff that I did. Um, I would say it's mostly gaming stuff because I did a lot of what are those called, emulators.
Okay.
I downloaded a lot of emulators, and I'm just going to flat out say I did. I've engaged in the evil art of piracy, especially since this is Jamaica, so it's a little whatever. But
Well,
yeah,
there are
um,
certainly a lot of takes on that.
yeah, exactly. But I mean, I did end up I end up doing chats a little bit later because, like I said, like I didn't do IRC or AOL Instant Messenger initially, but I did do MSN, and a lot of the times it would be just talking with friends from high school. Like we were brave enough to actually try to play emulators over Jamaican internet when one of us had 28.8k modem. So we were brave enough to do. Was it 20? We might have actually had DSL at the time. I don't remember, but we tried to play over. We tried to play emulators over the internet. Um, Yeah, I would say like that was kind of just talking to people. Like when I eventually got into instant messenger, just talking to people. Because to be honest, like before that, I just kind of played a lot of video games. I wouldn't even say on my own because it's like not I wouldn't say like I was on. I was always around a computer, but I wasn't necessarily on the internet constantly.
Mm-hmm.
Like I going back to the land center. We when we had a land center in Jamaica, I was there all the time. And then there was a point where I played Yu-Gi-Oh a lot, and so I did that. Like
Why Yu-Gi-Oh and not Magic?
so Magic was not Magic didn't. All right,
Didn't come to Jamaica.
it's not that something like that. It's really the TV show. People saw the
Okay,
TV
that's
show
fine.
and it was just like, oh, Yu-Gi-Oh! So we went with Yu-Gi-Oh.
Did you have the like hand-mounted card holder thing?
And no, we did not because no one would be caught dead with that. No. um, I think the most interesting Yu-Gi-Oh story is that there was another. It was not necessarily. It was like a gaming center where they had console games. That's in like the heart of the city, and we would go there and play Yu-Gi-Oh there. And we're a rowdy bunch of high school at least everybody else was a rowdy bunch of high school teenagers, and they eventually get themselves kicked out. But everybody wanted to go to like the same area, and there was an alleyway. And for a couple of months, we would go. I think it was Tuesdays or Wednesdays. We would go to that game shop, but instead of going into the game shop, we would go into the alleyway, and we would sit on garbage cans and play Yu-Gi-Oh on wherever we could play Yu-Gi-Oh,
That's
which
pretty awesome.
yeah, it's like it's kind of weird because you if you look down the alleyway, there's just like a weird collection of kids doing something strange, but like we used to play Yu-Gi-Oh wherever. You know what I mean? Like we I would go to other people's schools to play Yu-Gi-Oh. Like when we so when I needed to get cards, like so the thing about card games, especially in the States, like a lot of the times when you buy cards, or a lot of the times when you want cards, you just go buy them. You know what I mean? Screw it. I'm gonna
Yeah.
open up a bunch of packs. Are you crazy? You know? We don't really had that we didn't have that luxury. We either didn't have the money to buy to buy a large amount of packs or all manner of things. So if we wanted a card, we had to go find a person with the card. And people were like, yo, I'll play you for the card, or you better trade me so on and so forth for the card. And a lot of the times we had to play people for cards. One of the cards I actually have, I don't remember where I put them, but so my favorite Yu-Gi-Oh card is the Dark Magician of Chaos. I like Dark Magicians, and the Dark Magician of Chaos is like this ridiculous monster. And I just like the Dark Magician of Chaos. And so I spent the first 2 or 3 years of my Yu-Gi-Oh career looking for a Dark Magician of Chaos. And the way I ended up getting getting one was I had to get a bunch of cards, and it was a completely unfair trade. But this person was the only person I knew with a Dark Magician of Chaos. I don't want to say his full name because we call him DMOC because obviously that's like the short name. But that's great. I'm just calling him DMOC. So I wanted to get to a DMOC, and I was like, so we had to like scour the entire city to find people with the cards that the person would be willing to trade. And it took a couple of months, but I eventually got the DMOC that had a bend on top of it, and I had that card for maybe about 4 or 5 years until I went to Florida. And in the second year of being in Florida, my bag got stolen, and it had
Oh,
my PS3, my PS3, sorry, PS2. It was a copy of Third Strike and a copy of CVS2, and all of my Yu-Gi-Oh cards.
that's the worst.
Yeah,
That is the
but
worst.
I continued playing. And no, I this again. This is my favorite Yu-Gi-Oh card. I think I have 7 or 8 copies of the
Nice.
card. Yeah, and I think they're all from when he came out. He came out in Invasion of Chaos. That was probably second year Yu-Gi-Oh pack or
Okay.
third year. And I have a couple of. I think all of them are Invasion of Chaos, and a couple of them are first editions.
Oh, very
And
nice.
yeah, I have about 8 or 9 of them. I don't know why, but I do.
No, I can understand that. So I was an old school Magic player, and I played for many years and then quit and played again. And in my college years, um, I wanted to. So I wanted to play, and a lot of my friends were very similar. It was like, well, we used to play, but we don't really play anymore. I'm like, all right, if I don't make supply plentiful, nobody's gonna play. So I dropped way too much dollars. I won't. And I bought, I don't know, 8, maybe 10 boxes of packs.
Ooh.
And I started running tournaments. So I don't know how Yu-Gi-Oh works, but in Magic there's a format called Draft. And what's great is it's
Yeah,
like
yeah,
the
yeah.
great equalizer. You basically open up packs, you take a card, you pass. You take a card, you pass. So everyone basically starts with 3 packs of cards, and everything is random. So you could have a good round, you could have a bad round, but it's done and over in a few hours. Everybody has fun, and then at the end of the day, you got some cards. So I started
Yeah.
running drafts, and went from 4 people to 6 people to 8 people to 20 people. So I ended up running a bit of a store, and Magic has done 2 joke sets in its entire career, and I really wish it would do more. So the first one was called Unglued, and all it did was just funny cards that made fun of other cards that they had. And then the second one was Unhinged, which they further made fun of things. And in this set, they had one card called The Little Girl. And it was, so normally everything has a cost, and the minimum cost can be 1. So they made the cost of this 1/2. So it costs half a mana, and its attack power, again, normally these things, the minimum is 1. So the attack power is 1/2, and the defense is 1/2. And it's just this white card with this cute little girl on it. But it was just, I don't know what about it, but it made me laugh. And I said, you know what? This is a common card. It's a joke. No one's ever going to want to care for it. So I'm going to collect them. So I ran the tournament, and the entrance fee was the entrance fee plus. If you pull any little girls, they come to me at the end of the tournament. So
Oh wow.
we had 40-something people at this
By
tournament.
the way, that's not a strange statement. By the way,
Not at
if
all
you pull
out
any
of
little
context.
girls, you.
So as things are rolling in, so I paid $1 for every foil little girl. So some of them come with like the little holographic
It
stuff.
just gets worse.
And at the end of this
I'm sorry,
tournament, I had amassed 180 little girls and 10 foil little girls. And then it just became this joke, and every time people would come across a little girl, like in whatever, they'd be like, oh my god, my friend collects them, you have to give them to me. And they're common, so most people didn't care or think anything about it. Now, as I said, I am a collector, so I have my collection set up. I have my expensive things. And when I graduated from college, I sold off pretty much all my bulk except for these and a few other rare cards. And then, I don't know, it had to have been 5 or 6 years after. I said, you know what? I am going to offload. And I went around to all the stores, and anything that had more than 1 or 2, because again, these are no one thinks about these cards. So I basically bought out my local area of any little girls that could exist. And I went online to the few stores that had them. So like there's a few major websites, and like foil, there was 2. I'm like, well, great, they're mine now. So I bought them for like $2 a pop. So then I realized I have the absolute largest collection of little girls in the entire internet. And that is something worth auctioning. So I did. So I auctioned off just the regular ones. So I auctioned off a good, I don't know, it was 275 little girls. And I think I got like $200 for it. And then I foiled off the 14 or 15 foiled little girls that I had gotten, and I got $10 a pop.
Oh wow! Oh
And
wow!
I just, so I don't know, I like, it sounds terrible, but I made a few $100 off some little girls.
Right. So the FBI will be coming to your house
Oh,
immediately.
they were magic cards. But yeah, so the set had a bunch of funny joke cards, but that, I don't know what it was, but that one just, it made me laugh, and I totally didn't expect to make anything. So yeah, that was my one
I mean,
silly story on that.
to be honest, like I'm actually not all that surprised, except for the fact that they're little girls, which I'm still going to make fun of. But I'm not surprised because, like, the thing about magic, from my understanding, the culture is that magic doesn't keep everything in print or in print, but doesn't keep. You can't use all the cards, so eventually the cards go out of print, or it's not out of print, but out of, I don't know what, out of tournaments, so on and so forth. And then they become legacy and so on and so forth, and they sell for something, and you will find people who are willing to buy old cards like that. So,
Oh,
like,
the
I'm
foils are on
definitely.
eBay right now for $20.
Oh, for $20 a pop, like the
Yeah,
ones that you have
little
left.
girls. Yeah, there's a 16 buy it now, so they're probably still around the $10 a pop. But it was just, again, there's no reason for this card to have value, none.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I wouldn't even say that. I mean, having half a mana and that's interesting, you know what I mean? Like, that's like trivia. That's like a
Oh,
Magic the Gathering
it's
trivia.
purely a joke card. So I live in the New York area, and
Mhm.
there's a few card stores in New York and comic book type stores that are just like, huge, gigantic hotspots for people trading. So I was there once, and a friend, or I shouldn't even say a friend, a guy I had met in a tournament, he stole his friend's binder. His friend's binder at the time. Now, again, like, he did it as a joke. He was planning on returning it. Like, it was, the friend was saying,
Oh,
"Hey,
okay.
watch over my binder," and he took the binder and was like, "Hey, I'll watch over it." The binder easily was worth, at the time, maybe $6,000 or $7,000, like the cards inside.
Ooh.
Now I don't even want to take a guess. It was probably 50 or 60 now. But either way, so at the time, 5 or 6,000, fairly nice, complete collection. So he goes around and he's like, "All right, I want everyone to donate their crappiest possible foil card they can." And he was getting them and putting them in the sleeves on top of the other guy's card. So the guy was going to open
I
his binder
knew
and
it.
just see
Oh,
the crappiest foil cards. And he's like, "Look, I traded for all these great cards."
no.
And you could hear
Nah, I
the guy scream when he opened his binder. He was like,
Yep,
"What did
yep,
you
yep,
do?"
yep.
Bright red.
Yeah, yep. Oh my God, I'd be salty as hell. I'd be salty as
I
hell.
can understand that. It was a good prank though, because at the end of the day, it was, nothing was stolen. It was completely innocent, but it was definitely a good scare.
Oh yeah, I mean, like, people used to protect their binders like it was their damn soul. I mean, like, in Jamaica, like, we used to like kind of hug our binders because we had people with sticky fingers,
Oh
and
yeah,
yeah. So
it's hard. I mean, when you're a kid, I mean, that stuff's it's not just gold. Like, it's the first thing that holds both monetary value and play value.
yeah, absolutely,
And trade
absolutely.
value too. Like,
Like,
there's social status. Like, I'm sure like, there was always that one kid who was like, had all the really good cards, and you're like,
oh yeah, yeah. Like, he had like a posse. Like it was this kid that would he wouldn't have tournament decks, but he would have decks that were really strong. But like getting the cards were so difficult. He would just go buy them off the internet because he had a credit card. He was older than us. He had a credit card and he had money and so on and so forth. His parents was rich at the time, and he would just go buy cards. And then he had a crew that he hung out with, and he would just build decks for them. Like there was a water deck guy, there was a dark magicians deck guy. There what was else? There was like a mini tournament deck guy.
Hmm.
To be, and like he was that guy though. He was a person, and he played really well. So like, and he had good cards. So he was the guy to beat. But then, funny enough, I had another friend who was good at deck building, but he was really good at playing. Like he won a few tournaments down here, and
Hmm.
so it was always those two, and they would always play for cards. They would play each other for cards, and it was amazing to watch because they were two pretty good players with two great decks, and it was
And
just
how do you feel
it
about
was great.
collectibles now in games? So like, well, it was asked in chat. So more specifically, things like loot crates. So
Oh,
custom weapon
okay.
skins, custom weapons, and such. Uh,
I don't mind loot crates so much. So especially for video games, I don't care because for video games, the reason why I'm playing the game itself is for like for instance, I play Street Fighter now, but I've been playing a lot of Apex, and Apex has loot
mhm.
crates, so on and so forth. But I don't really care that much. Like there are some skins that are like, man, this is really cool. I want this. But for the most part, I'm playing the game for the game itself, you know. Now, in terms of culturally or like in terms of dangers to children, because like it's kind of more or less gambling. It has the same mentality as gambling, and so you can kind of get kids to get addicted to wanting loot crates, and then they just spend their parents' money. Like in terms of the cultural significance, I'm against it, because they're taking advantage of younger people. But in terms of for me personally, I don't really I don't because again I'm just playing the game because of what the game offers from the base.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Like
Well,
like
I think it comes down to it. Is it pay to play, or is it pay to win, or is it just a minor graphical upgrade? So like for example, Rocket League. Like if you're buying a cool new car that just looks cool and doesn't really change anything, and it doesn't make you more better competitively, I think that's wonderful because look, if you've got the money, support the devs. But when you got a
right,
game
right,
like
right, right.
Destiny 2 or things like that where your loot crate is actually determining whether or not you have a good weapon or not,
Yeah,
like that to me, that spoils a game experience to me.
I
Um,
definitely agree.
yeah.
I mean, it's kind of the same thing with like Modern Warfare, right? Like even though you're not getting loot crates, but if you're a certain level, you don't have access to certain guns, and if you don't have access to certain guns, then you are literally at a disadvantage in comparison to other people. Like, for instance, I think Modern Warfare 2 is the more, at least is the one that stuck out in my mind because I'd played it so much, or I'd played it enough to know like there are two old shotguns in there's an old shotgun, sorry, in Modern Warfare that is really good in terms of hip fire, and you can akimbo those two shotguns. And if you're playing, you legit like it is so you're just devastating with those things. And I think you get them at like level 40 and 50. So you could start Modern Warfare, which is actually one of the biggest issues with Call of Duty at the time. You start Modern Warfare, but you start it like a month or 2 months late, and you have those people who have just been like, yo, I prestiged, or I've gotten to level 50 and I'm not going to prestige. You start playing those people, and you're just getting mauled by these crazy ass weapons with these crazy ass setups, and you're just like, why the hell do I even play? So it's kind of like the same thought, but like the thing about loot crates is that it's completely random, whereas like in Modern Warfare you get it at some point, but the people who've gotten it first crowd out everybody else. And
Hmm.
so then it's just a bunch of people who have gotten it first playing each other for the next year. So it's like the same thing. It's like you always want all the gameplay features open to every single person the moment they start playing,
Yeah.
and will be completely available to them until they stop playing. Otherwise, then you're going to have like imbalance of power in the maybe power is not the right term, but you're going to have an
It's
imbalance in the game where you're going to have some players who are just better because they are better equipped, and then players who are not better, but it's not like a MMO where the whole point of the game is to become better equipped. It's like getting better equipped is a side a side hustle, but a side thing for the game. Like the point of the game is to play an FPS, but now you have to play an FPS and get better equipped, and then it's like after a while it's just like I could easily just go play. I could easily go play Quake, or Quake is old, but I could easily go play Counter Strike. I can easily go play Rainbow Six, or maybe not Rainbow Six because I don't think you have all the characters. But I could easily go play another game, and like I would it'd just be much easier for me to go play a game where I just have access to all of the characters or all of the weapons. I just drop $60 and that's it.
Yep.
So that's kind of the issue. But the problem is that there's enough people that like loot crates, and there's enough people that are willing to spend money on loot crates, and then there's enough people that are willing to watch other people spend money on loot crates,
Yes.
and there's just like a whole ecosystem around it. So regardless of how we as two gamers feel about it, it's going to continue to exist, unfortunately.